We learn a lot about Jesus by paying attention to where he is. The gospel, according to Mark, is short on details. Like, we don't know anything about what Jesus looked like or any of the disciples because Mark doesn't bother to tell us. So when Mark does give details, they're important. They mean something to the story of Jesus and the character of Jesus. If we read through Mark and pay attention to the locations, there's a clear pattern. Jesus goes to liminal spaces, places of transition, places at or near a boundary. He goes to places on the border of life and death, a graveyard, a deathbed, ultimately to the cross at Calvary. He goes to geographical borderlands, the wilderness, mountaintops, cities near political boundaries like Tyre and Caesarea Philippi. He goes to socio-political boundaries, the house of a tax collector, Jerusalem during the highly charged season of Passover. These are places of strangeness, risk, danger, and they're where Jesus likes to show up. Where is Jesus in today's gospel? He's crossing to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. If you go to the Sea of Galilee today, half the shoreline is in Israel, half is in Jordan. The border that was present in Jesus' time is still there in our time. Jesus' day began on the western shore of the lake, the Jewish side. So many people wanted to hear Jesus that to make room for all of them on the lake shore, he had to climb into a boat and teach from the water. It doesn't seem like Jesus ever got out of the boat. He taught the disciples privately after speaking to the crowds. So when evening comes, all of them are in the boat, the disciples and Jesus. And he says, let's go across the lake to the other side. The disciples are experienced fishermen. They know what they're doing on the water, but this is still not a great idea. Evening is when storms blow up on the Sea of Galilee. And of course, when the sun is down, it's much harder to see where you're going and what you're doing. But this is what Jesus does. He goes into these liminal spaces of danger and risk. It is dangerous. A storm blows up and threatens to swamp the boat. Jesus has to overpower the wind and the waves. The boat makes it safely to the other side, the Gentile side. Jesus has crossed that border because there's a man over there who's tormented by demons. He's lost so much of himself that he has to be chained up far away from other people. He lives among the tombs as though he is already dead. Jesus goes to the other side to heal this man, to cast out the forces of evil that hold him captive, to restore him to himself and to his community. Jesus, by his very presence, brings the kingdom of God near to this man. Mark tells us that wherever there is a boundary, Jesus crosses it to bring the kingdom of God near to everyone. Storms and night don't stop him. Strangeness and risk and danger don't stop him. Wherever there are people in need of the healing, strengthening, loving, liberating, life-giving kingdom of God, Jesus goes to them. And he takes the disciples with him. I wouldn't be surprised if the disciples were already in the boat with Jesus when he announced that they weren't going to the other side. That's the sort of sneaky thing Jesus would do. This is the Messiah who called people to follow him and told them only much later that, oh, by the way, following me leads to suffering and death, yours as well as mine. I'll rise again and so will you, but this way of life is costly. Christian faith is like that. We were baptized into it as children, or we came to it as adults, and it takes years, perhaps even a lifetime, to understand what it will demand of us. We get into that boat with Jesus through our baptism. We might think we've signed up for a pleasant afternoon of sailing in calm waters near the shore. Then, as the sun goes down, he says, "Let's go across to the other side." Maxwell is getting into the boat with Jesus this morning. When I met with his parents, Matt and Lauren, and his godparents, Emily and Andrew, to prepare for his baptism, we talked about why they wanted him to be baptized and their hopes for his faith life. The word that kept coming up throughout our conversation was love. Max's parents and godparents want him to know that he is loved, and they want him to love God and love others. Lurking in the background as we talked was a truth that I suspect all 5 of us know through experience. Love is not safe. When we love someone, whether it's a child, another family member, a friend, or a romantic partner, loving another person is like walking around with your heart outside of your body. Love leaves you vulnerable. It makes you suffer when your loved one is suffering. When you're the one who has caused their pain, it forces you to realize the depth of your own sinfulness. The worst guilt I've ever felt has been when I hurt someone I really cared about. Love exists in the space between you and me, in the strangeness of another person who, however well you know them, will somehow always be a mystery. Love is a liminal space, the kind of risky, dangerous boundary zone where Jesus likes to show up. Baptism brings us into the liminal space of love. We think we're hanging out in the boat with Jesus, and he decides to sail out into deep water just at evening because there's a hurting person over there who needs our love. We set out to bring the kingdom of God to them. And as Methodist pastor and poet Steve Garnaas Holmes puts it, you know, don't you, that he never simply means the far side of the lake. The other side of the tracks, the other side of the border, the other side of life, beyond the familiar, the safe, the manageable, the other side of the argument, another viewpoint, the other side of the conflict, the other side of yourself, the other side of the veil, the unseen. Let us go there. Let us explore the dark side of our hearts. Let us stand in solidarity with those who are other. See the world in an other way. Don't worry, the beloved will go with us. Perhaps in this time of deep divisions and polarization, what this world needs most is people willing to step into the liminal space of love. People willing to cross the borders of race and class and religion and politics and gender to seek and serve Christ in the other. We may not have realized that's what we were signing up for when we were baptized. It might not have been our choice, but here we are in the boat with Jesus. He takes us with him as he brings the kingdom of God near to those who need it most. And as we sail with Jesus to the other side of the lake, we take our part in the loving, liberating, life-giving work of Jesus Christ. And we are not afraid, for Jesus is with us, right here in the boat.